we decided that we should be able to specifically go into policy dialogues. Those policy dialogues are meant to help us arrive at policy positions which inform our responses to what the ruling party is doing in the country, to also to help in the formulation of our party manifesto for the next election. We want to be very systematic, we want to be very informed. So we've been able to tap into the input of professionals in given areas. And that activity will continue under the policy research sector of the party led by Mr. Okumu Martin. We've also been able to do media outreach, and the communications team has been able to hold these monthly conversations. We've been able to be active on social media. Once in a while, we've been able to do a press conference here and there. But our press conferences are structured in such a way that we can only do it when we feel it is necessary to do it. Sometimes we just release a statement because we also don't want just to call a press conference every week just for the sake of it. Yeah, so it is along those lines that the party has been very active. We were able to get our youth to join the Inter-Party Youth Organization, youth platform, and they seem to be doing quite a good job there. The women are in the process of forming an Inter-Party women platform, and we've encouraged our team to be active also there. So that seems like a small roundup, but let me comment on fund development. We understood that to run the party, we should be able to get resources locally. And we started a number of initiatives to get people to contribute to the party. Actually, some of them to ask for contributions as low as 3,000 shillings per month. 3,000, sorry, is less than $1 USD. And we thought that would be helpful. And we still believe that that is the way to go. If we all develop the discipline to give that as long as we have committed to it. Unfortunately, the segment of raising resources locally is not yet flourishing, and maybe Ugandans yet have to learn that the change they want must be invested into. Because without investing into change in this country, it will be very difficult. The legal environment is difficult. The political environment is difficult, and therefore really getting resources. There are individuals who would want probably to give some money to a political party, but you can be sure there will be a serious clamp down if they are identified. So it's much better if we ordinary Ugandans are able to give 3,000 shillings. Nobody will clamp down on 3,000 shillings, which is less than $1, really. Yeah. So thank you, Nada. I hope I...
Okay, so I want to take you back to the beginning of 2022. I read in one of the previous interviews that you were doing an election process review by touring the country. And I would really like to know, how did you do that? And what were the outcomes? What have you learned about the past election process? And how will that influence preparations for the next elections? Even though they are a little bit far away, they are nearer than we expect.
So the election review meetings were meant to do quite a number of things. One, they were intended to obtain feedback from those who offered themselves. Because offering to stand on the ANT ticket when ANT was barely maybe a year then, and then they hadn't even met the leaders, their communities had not been mobilized, was really an act of courage on the part of the many who did it. And so we thought, let's get to these people and get one, to know them face to face. We only knew their names as candidates whom we processed. So meet them, get to know their aspirations, get to know what motivated them, and get to hear their outlook for the party. And then also understand their challenges. What did they encounter during the elections? And then, you know, bonding. Elections is a very tricky thing. When a person loses an election, more than likely they will be very discouraged. And so meeting your leaders, hearing and sharing experiences of the others is something that helps you, revives you. So we also needed to do a therapeutic move to help our people so that they get encouraged that it didn't end there. There is still a future to their political careers. So when we went out, we got so much information, which we have been processing, and we are in the final process of one, formulating our strategic plan. It should be out by mid of next year, because now it's being given the final touches, the final drafting. We also got information that helps us, or that helped us design some of the activities that we are working on. For instance, the capacity building aspects of our leaders. Many of them went in there, they had no knowledge of campaigns. They just went because they loved the ANT message. And so we are planning that come next season, we should be having a training package, a campaign training package for them, also to improve on communication. Because a number of them said, we were just in a blackout. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to get in touch. So we are working on all aspects of communication, basing on the outcomes of those discussions. And of course, we are happy that the other political parties also learned from us. Subsequently, everybody said we're going to do election reviews. And we thought, wow, we pioneered this thing and we've already made an impact on other political parties. And we think that was good. Yeah.
I personally believe that it's very important to do the follow-up, and I'm glad that you did, because I'm sure the learning is vast, and that will be shared with the rest of the party members as soon as your process is complete. My next question was on policy dialogues. You talked about policy dialogues, extensive policy dialogues, and building policies from there. But just for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, could you tell us, how does that mechanism function? Who is involved in policy dialogues? Who do you actually dialogue with?
So we identify a topic, an area of interest, basing on a number of parameters. For instance, we might find that it is the ongoing conversation nationally, and we need to make a response. We need to comment, but we don't want to comment when we are not very knowledgeable about the alternatives that could come into play. So we pick a topic, and for instance, we picked the taxation, because there was a season in Uganda where taxation became taxation. You know, there was lack of clarity on what taxes were being introduced. And there was also a number of taxes that seemed rather retrogressive, taxes on internet and so on, when we understood that internet access should be the way to go. And so we said, well, let's discuss this. So we identify, one, the experts in the area of taxation and economy, and they come and do the lead paper and lead presentation. And then we get a discussant also to come in and make a comment. And then in terms of participants, we encourage the national leadership of the party as much as possible to join in, to be part of it. But also we open it up to the public if they are able to register on time, so that we collect all those views. And indeed, we collected views which are being processed by research and policy and research, so that once it is done, there are already 3 of them. The other one was post-COVID management, I think. I forget the 3rd one. So once they have compiled that, then the leadership of the party sits down to adopt a policy position. And that becomes the guiding document for the party, so that our response is based on what we have adopted as a team. So that's how it works, really. It's not a complicated procedure, but it's a very rich procedure. It's very helpful.
Okay, I'd like to move to my next question. There is always that discussion of about gaining critical mass. Obviously, for a relatively young party, that may be a long process. How do you intend to achieve the critical mass to make change? This is maybe going into your plans for 2023.
Well, a critical mass is a vital aspect of mobilization, really. That's what mobilization should do. That is what membership should be about. We are looking at, first, what drives ANT is attaining values-based leadership. And we are aware that this country, Uganda, has a number of people who are value-driven. They are there in every sphere of life, value-driven Ugandans. The only challenge is that not many of them are keen on bringing their good values into the management of public affairs. So you find good people only saying, you see, we need a change, but they're not willing to dive into the deep waters or into the murky waters. So our outreach program is to talk to professionals. I actually forgot to say that one of the big things that we did this year was to do an outreach to stakeholders. We went about talking to religious leaders, cultural leaders, and we are shifting to professionals and civil society groups. The reason we are reaching out to them is that they know the good people. Some of them are already good people, but we want them to come into politics, bring their integrity, bring their hard work, bring their godliness, bring any of those values that they cherish to politics. That is the only time Uganda will change. Uganda, the management of politics and the political culture in Uganda is not going to change because there was another election. No, because you get another election and another thief gets voted in. If a thief gets voted in, they will also steal. If you have another election and you end up with power-hungry individuals who do not put the people first, you still end up with a bad situation. It is not going to be the first time. For instance, 2026 will not be the first time Uganda will have held another presidential or another general election. No, it will not be. But who do we bring into the leadership? That is what determines whether the country will change politically or not. So we are determined to go out there and look for people of integrity and encourage them to be part and parcel of the change, the process of change in this country. If they don't come in, I don't know any other formula that will change this country, because we'll be recycling the troubles we've had since independence, and nothing will happen. So that's the critical mass we're talking about, people who really believe in values and want to offer values-based leadership to the country at all levels, from LC1 to parliament to presidency. That's what we are looking at. The second aspect of a critical mass is certainly the membership of the party. But as you know, worldwide membership of the party is not as big as the voters. Big parties do not have a huge membership, but they have a committed membership that goes out there to look out for the vote. Where we are as ANT, we have not yet even got the critical membership of the party, because we need to have at least, you know, maybe like maybe 8,000, like 3 million members, and then those ones multiply by carrying the party message outside. So we are not yet there. So we are one of the things, again, to look out and to pursue in the next year is the aspect of membership recruitment.
In advertising, there is something we do when we want to present any particular brand to any group of people, and that is profiling the target audience for that brand. So if we say that you want to profile an ideal party member, what would this person be? Who would this person be? What would they be like? What would be their interests? Who do you want to attract to the party membership? Who are the ideal people?
Well, the ideal people is really are real Ugandans who are passionate about their country. Because once they have the passion for a better Uganda, they will ride their bicycles, whether they are illiterate or not. They will ride their bicycles to talk to their neighbor about the change that we want. The other bit of it is when they have the passion, they'll be able to commit their little resources. And resources really for political party running is not just about money, having cash, but being able to put aside their time to advance the ideals of the party, whether in their local marketplace or in their church or wherever, in their community, in their savings cooperative. For us, those are the ideal members, people who are passionate, but also people who want to practice, who believe in these values that we are espousing. And given that that is the key parameter, then they should be able to run across. We know that there is a class of Ugandans who know what to do, who know that the current direction of the country is not really good, but they do nothing about it. They're very satisfied, and that is the corporate class of Uganda. They are very satisfied sitting in their homes and in their offices and wishing that ordinary Ugandans would bring about a change. And we are reaching out to them. Our message to them is really that, look here, if you do not work towards changing the direction of this country, you will continue to pay medical bills for all your village mates and all your relatives, because the hospitals do not have drugs. We don't know where our taxes are going. So you who is well placed Do not disassociate yourself from the general political affairs of the country. You have a role to do. So even to that category, we are reaching out. We hope that they would be able to interpret the situation of the better and much faster than ordinary people at the community. Then there is a group that does not vote at all. They don't vote. They don't belong to any political party. We don't understand where they stand, and they are leaving decision making to whom it may concern. Our interest is to tell them, you must participate. It is your country and it is your destiny. So in terms of membership, we want to do kind of a cross section. If we can get them involved, so much the better. The major focus of the ANT is the youth of Uganda. They have a longer journey in this country, and anything that goes wrong affects them for a longer time than the older generation. So we are focused on the Youth League, first of all, making it part of the national leadership. Our youth don't sit there and we sit here. No, when we are seated here, they are part again and parcel of the decision-making processes of the party, because we want to mentor them, we want to give them direction, we want to share experiences with them. We don't want them to make the same mistakes that we have made as elders in the party. And so we are doing a part of imparting our own leadership skill onto them, hoping that when their time to run the country comes, they'll run it better and they will not repeat the mistakes of this generation.
So since youth is so important, and definitely they are, because the future of Uganda and the future of the entire world is resting on the shoulder of young people. They're the ones who will have to work hard. And as you said, they will live longer than us. So whatever problems we create, we are going to leave it to them to solve. How do you see Ugandan youth in terms of being politically active? Are they politically active in other parties, or is it only ANT that is able to attract them? What are the other parties doing? And again, is it possible to somehow unite the youth of Uganda, irrespective of political affiliation, on doing something for the country that we aren't able to do?
There are two aspects of the involvement of our young people. There is the symbolic involvement without really taking into consideration the issues that affect them. And that one, we have it all over. We have it in the laws of the country. We have it in the youth structures. We have it in, there's so much. Youth leader this, youth councillor this, youth what this, youth MP that, youth. There are so many, there's so much, which for me is more or less a symbolic engagement. So to make the people who are under 30 feel they are in leadership. Now, what we want and what the youth, at least in ALT and in this country, need is a meaningful, impactful, youth-focused engagement. This one is totally different in the sense that you, without even mentioning it, would be focusing the energies of government and its resources on empowering young people. How? There should be empowerment in terms of employment opportunities. So we have a government with so many youth in leadership, but there is massive youth unemployment. That is a contradiction. That's not the way to go. If we mind about our young people, even if they had 2 leaders countrywide, but they were meaningfully employed, it would be a more promising future for the youth of this country. We have so many youth leaders, and yet millions of our youth, okay, maybe millions is an exaggeration, but I was at the airport and one of the people who work at Entebbe Airport told me that they see in excess of 400 young people leaving Uganda on a daily basis for labor export, which is not regulated or harmonized by our country. We all know everywhere in the world there is labor exportation, and countries derive a lot of dividend from that. But here in Uganda, you watch our young people being taken. And when they reach there, nobody knows, nobody accounts for them. You hear all manner of stories. If we run a youth-focused program as a government, then government should be able to regulate the exportation of our young people and ensure guaranteeing bilateral relations, their safety. They should be able to come back alive. They should be able to come back when they need to come back. They should not be held hostage because the labor exporting company abandoned them there. The other thing that is important as part of the youth agenda is the quality of our education. Our education, as we talk now, is something that should have been reviewed by a responsible government long time ago. The world is moving into a lot of creativity for young people. Here we are still cramming. Can you imagine in Uganda, we are still cramming the Canadian prairies. My background is a teaching. I used to teach geography, and I would tell our young people, you know, in the Canadian prairies, they grow wheat, they grow it in large scale now. Then what? Uganda should be telling their children, this is how a tractor is made. This is how it is used. Go and grow large scale maize or something like that. We are not doing that. So our education system is not really addressing what our young people would benefit from. And the other bit of it is a majority of the youth in this country are engaged in agriculture. And I can tell you, rudimentary agriculture. The hand hoe, which, I don't know when we stopped learning about Stone Age, then we went into the Iron Age. Now in the Iron Age is when the hand hoe was manufactured, BC something. And up to today, it's not that we melt the iron ore in a rudimentary way in this country, but we are still using the hand hoe. We are not investing in agriculture. Government is not investing in value addition. So how do you expect our young people to break free from poverty? And if they don't break free from poverty, we will continue to lose generations and generations. So the discourse concerning the youth involvement in politics, first and foremost, should begin by addressing the challenges that young people have. That is the common agenda. Whether you are a youth in ANT, NRM, or NUP, or anything, that is the common agenda. They have a common challenge. Then secondly, we need to guide our young people, because sometimes you have, there is a discussion going on in the country. If you're below 30, then you should be supported by young people. That is okay, if you're driving the right agenda. I am told that President Museveni came with a lot of young people. He was the only one who was above 30. But he derailed the whole process, and now it is something else happening in the country. So we need to begin focusing on an agenda, whether it is led by elders or led by young people or led in conjunction. Me, I would be happy for an agenda that is jointly developed for and by the young people. That agenda should focus on the needs of the young people, not just having them in office and then what?
Well, evidently not everyone can get an office job because it's simply not sustainable. Uganda is a predominantly agricultural country, and the young people, I mean, how many of them can access work in urban areas? Not many really, but I'll give you a small example from my neighborhood in Garuga, Gerenge. We have a lot of illegal fishing, and that's what the youth engages in. And unfortunately, they're unprepared even for that, because a lot of them don't know how to swim. From time to time, we lose people to the lake, and that comes from simply lack of education, as you say. If you are not educated in basic survival skills like swimming, you shouldn't be in the water, and that's common sense, but we don't see that quite often. So who in your view should take charge to help young people get some life skills rather than just school cramming, as you call it? Who should that be? Is it up to political parties, or is it up to parents, communities, and so on? Who is responsible for all our youth?
Well, certainly everybody has a role to play. When you're a parent, you're a parent. You can't abscond your responsibility. Teach your children what you must teach them so that they meet the world out there when they're equipped. But the reason we also take our children to school is that what we cannot impart at home, the school should be able to impart. But then, more importantly, there should be an institutional environment governing every aspect of life in a country. Fishing is not in the blue. There is a ministry called Fisheries and something, is it agriculture and fisheries and so on and so forth. So the fact that every institution seems not to be working is what is leading to some of those things, the death of institutions in the country. Because if institutions were working, certainly Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries should be able to go all the way, collect the farmers, train them, give them the capacity to do legal fishing. You don't run after them because they have committed an illegality when you have not done your part to show them the dangers of fishing, picking out small fish, using bad nets. You need to educate them and tell them, you see, when you catch this little fish, your child in years to come will not have a fish to eat. So, but this is how you do it. These are the type of nets that are acceptable. I am told by fishermen from across Kenya that in their waters, the level of drownings is not as high as the Ugandan waters. The level of illegal fishing is not as high as it is in the Ugandan waters. Maybe, I am assuming, perhaps their regulatory institution across the lake goes a little further than just running after people in the water to stop them. So I think that what the country needs is functional ministries, functional institutions, and investing on its people, whether they're illiterate, whether they you don't, like you said, you all don't have to get into an office or something like that. No, but empower them to make a sustainable living where they are, where there is an opportunity for them as individuals.
My next question, Honorable Alice, is about the effort called People's Front for Transition. Some time back, there was a bit of discussion about ANT and People's Front for Transition. What is the level of interaction between the two organizations?
So when the People's Front was initiated, we got a communication asking us to go participate in its launch. I communicated, because we held a meeting with the party leaders, that one, we are happy with the initiatives the other political parties are taking. But because we're running the party on an interim arrangement, interim in the sense that from the delegates conference that founded the party, we had not been able to put in place party structures. We then briefed the proponents of the People's Front, I think, for transition. Yeah. We briefed them that we needed to use 2021 as our year to pick up leadership. Our understanding was that because they were established political parties already, they were coming with leadership up to sub-county and even village levels. And for us, we didn't have any. And so we wrote to them, one, okaying, acknowledging that it was a good initiative. But secondly, we also told them to give us some time to raise leadership that would participate with them with the arrangements in the People's Front for Transition. But we also requested them to keep us posted so they could share developments, more like in an observer status while we organize ourselves. My experience with political parties is it is possible for the top leadership to commit the party in any direction. And yet, at the lower level, you are hollow. And if you're hollow and you enter into a negotiation, and they say, okay, bring us your team from, say, Nakaseke, and you don't have, you begin to look funny on that table. And that's why we ask that we be allowed some time to put in the structures and also put in substantive, because there would be substantive decisions to be made. We needed some substantive decision-making organs of the party. And so when we are done with the structures, we'll be able to constitute delegates, and the delegates will constitute the delegates conference. That delegates conference will birth the National Executive Committee of the party, so that executive decisions for the party will be arrived at by that organ. Currently, we have an interim leadership of the party, which is not even covering the whole country. And that's quite difficult if you are in a management position. It becomes a bit tricky if you don't have anybody to call and consult in a particular district, and yet you want to make a decision for the 2 or 3 members that are there. So we are in touch, and we hope to get involved, but we first want to be strong enough to be engaged. You know, you don't take babies to the fighting ring, they'll get crushed.
Okay, that sounds very good. For our viewers and listeners, just a reminder that this is In Conversation with Honorable Alice Alaso Asianut, And we are continuing into the plans and programs for 2023. What are the plans? What's going to happen next year? What should we look forward to?
We've given ourselves almost only one activity. The rest are the routine ones, media conferences and policy dialogues and whatever. But the one activity that we pray that we find resources for is continuing the process of building the party structures, because everything revolves around the establishment of party structures. Our strength is going to be dependent, is going to be measured on the strength of our party structures. Campaigns will be based on the party structures. Vote protection will be based on party structures. So for every little coin that we will get in 2023, our intention is to continue with that exercise, taking the party to the community and picking out leadership from the grassroots upwards. That's the major thing. The rest are routine activities of political parties.
Okay, we are talking about party structures, but can you now be specific? So that we all know if we want to join ANT at the grassroots, who do we look for and where do we go?
Yeah, so when we go into a community, first we do want to make ourselves known. And so we share with that particular community what we stand for. And as I said earlier, we stand for values-based leadership. We stand for institutional building. We also stand for a peaceful transition. And yeah, so those three things are the ones that drive the ANT. And at the core of running the party is youth leadership, women, and we call them the special interest group involvement. So once we share that with the community, like we've shared in many communities now, then we ask in that meeting whether there are any people who have developed any interest to be part of our team. And once we get them, we document them in a party register. And then we call another meeting of only those ones now. And we ask them, please choose somebody to link you up as your team leader here. And then they get for us a team leader at that level. And as the numbers grow, then we go back to that same community, that village, and put in place a structure. So our party structure in any community is threefold. The first one is what they call the mainstream party structure, where you have a mixture of men and women who want to be in party leadership at that level. At that level, I think we have like 11 people. Yeah, something around there. And then we also have in that community another structure for the youth league. The youth will also identify their own leadership. And then they bring their chairperson into the mainstream committee as the secretary for youth affairs. Then the other structure in the community, in the village, is the women league structure. And the same apply into the mainstream as the secretary for women affairs. And then we continue growing that. The villages then come together to constitute the parish committee, and the parish committees constitute the sub-county committees, and the sub-county committees constitute the county conference. And then in that conference, 2 delegates will be picked. And then there will also be the constitution of the district committee. Now, when the delegates and the district committees are in place, then among them, we will have the National Delegates Conference, who will then elect the National Executive Committee of the party. So that is how it progresses, meaning if you want to be a member of the ANT in your village of Gelenge, that means you have to go to that village when, when we are beginning to set up the party structures, and then you grow upwards with the party structure.
Sorry, my network connection.
That's a good one. What gives me the energy to carry on is really that Uganda is my country. I have no other place to call home. This is my country, and it will be country for my children, my children's children, for generations to come. Even if they find alternative citizenship, they will still trace their heritage to this country. And so I am driven by the need to see a better Uganda. I am also driven by the need to see a peaceful transition, because this country has had very painful episodes for transition, because shifting from one president to another has been on the basis of bloodshed. And I keep telling those that are in power, please allow this country an opportunity to transit peacefully from the current regime to the next one. Allow us to express ourselves peacefully. We don't intend to burn down our own shops, but we want to be heard as Ugandans. And so that is what drives me every day. I wake up, I have to go to the office, I have to pray about this country. I just want a better Uganda. I also appreciate that this country is richly endowed. There are very few countries on planet Earth that have the weather we have, that have the vegetation we have, that have such a rich heritage of diversity of tribes and languages and cultures. Uganda is such a blessed country. The only challenge we have is the political culture and the leadership. The moment we sort out the leadership question and get leaders that really put people first in this country, I want to imagine we will also go to the moon one of these days. So it is that drives me. I am also encouraged by the team that I work with. They are a relentless team. Sometimes I sit down, I get tired. I just sit and say, I'm not going to the field. But there will always be a one Mr. Kumu, Ambassador Edith, the Winnie Kiza, General Muntu, the youth of this party. They will always be there. The women of this party will always be there. So when I see them, I also get motivated, and hope keeps me going. I have not concluded that this country has reached irreversible levels. No, I am convinced that Uganda has a bright future ahead.
Before we move on to the questions from Twitter, I would like to ask you one last question about 2022-2023. At the end of this year, what achievements hypothetical achievements will make you feel that you have reached for the stars? What needs to happen for you and ANT?
There are certain things I look forward to in the country itself, which maybe ANT will not be the driving force. I mean, will not be personally responsible for achieving. But I'm looking forward to a peaceful political transition overall in Uganda. And that one is mainly a thing that is dependent on the ruling party. But we are asking, we are praying, we are petitioning that there shall be a peaceful political transition, whether today or by the end of the year. We hope that we will have that opportunity. But secondly, for the ANT within our means, I'll be very happy if members and us are able to put in place the necessary resources to run the party, because all else depends on our ability to raise the resources that we badly need. I'll be very happy when the resources are available and we have marketed the party throughout the country. We have a willing team. We have teams. We can send out 4 or 5 teams to talk to people about what ANT is, but that is dependent on our ability to move from our homes to Kasese, to Karamoja, to the islands in Kalangala and Buvuma and so on and so forth. But I'll be very happy if everybody, by the end of 2023, will have fully heard what ANT is about. I'm also hoping that in our scorecard of 2023, some district will have constituted the substantive committees so that by 2024, we complete this exercise and be able to hold the first national delegates conference and give this party its substantive leadership. That's my prayer.
Okay, so this is Honorable Alice Alaso Asianut, and I would like to give you a question from Ben Twino Mugisha on Twitter. He asks, he would like you to shed more light about your role of an advisor for the legislative arm of government in the 11th Parliament in particular. He adds, a typically Ugandan, rumor has it that you are one of them. Can you confirm or deny?
Thank you very much, Ben. There is no such a position, at least to the best of my knowledge, called an advisor to Parliament. I used to be a parliamentary commissioner, and there was no such position. The Parliamentary Commission is chaired by the Speaker and led by, assisted by something which looks like a board called the Commission, constituted from political parties that are in Parliament, and ANT is not one of them. After 2016, when I didn't make it back to Parliament, there used to be an institute, I am told, of parliamentary studies. And yeah, it was called Institute of Parliamentary Studies. And then they identified not only me at that time, they identified us to facilitate the induction of new members of Parliament. I guess the understanding was that who among the former legislators had a demonstrable capacity to explain the rules of procedure and to guide, to mentor the new members of Parliament. And so at that time, I got an opportunity to facilitate induction. Again, when this Parliament came through, I was invited by the Parliament of Uganda and asked if I could facilitate a number of training sessions. The first session I actually did was organized by the leader of the opposition. And so I was invited to take members through their role as members of Parliament, but who are in the opposition, so that they work towards achieving certain expectations and certain targets as members of the opposition. That I did. Subsequently, Parliament of Uganda also the Uganda Women Parliamentarians Association asked me also to take on a mentorship role to train new members of parliament. And I got some of them who here and there ask me questions. How do we write a question for oral answer? How do we raise a matter of national importance? How do we move a motion? And so I got them from a number of political parties, and I guide them on how to do it. And then later on, again, Parliament of Uganda asked me, not only me, we are quite many. I am there with the Honorable Albert Duman of the FDC. I am there with the Honorable Dan Wandera Ogalo, a seasoned constitutional lawyer, former member of the East African Legislative Assembly, and an elder in the Alliance for National Transformation and our party lawyer. And then a number of them, others, the Honorable Ruhindi of the NRM, and many others. So we do trainings, we teach members of parliament how to do legislation, representation, and oversight. I consider it a privilege because it is a measure of confidence in the legislative ability that I demonstrated when I was still a serving member of parliament. Secondly, I consider it my small way of enabling those that represent us to perhaps do something good. So it is something that I take in stride. It is something that I read so much to try to help them. As to whether the members of parliament finally use the skills that we give them is a matter that they evaluate internally. We are not responsible for that. So long and short, I am not an advisor to parliament, but I was asked to be a resource person during the various inductions and mentorship programs of the Parliament of Uganda.
In many ways, people who leave Parliament remain a valuable resource. And in my opinion, it would be very unintelligent not to reach out and not to ask for continuation or a handover or support in certain areas. I also want to believe that members of parliament do not go to parliament for some sinister reasons. I want to believe that whoever is there wishes this country well and wishes to make a meaningful contribution. And in any case, whoever is listening to our conversation or watching on social media, that would be me chipping in and saying, if you want to go into politics, do not go into it for selfish reasons. Go into politics because you want to contribute your knowledge, your mobilization potential, you want to contribute ideas, you want to do a positive and proactive change in your community. That is the reason why one should go into politics. Now, I want you to just give us the closing remarks, and we wrap up this conversation today because the questions are not forthcoming. I believe everyone is busy with preparing for their celebrations for a new year tomorrow. So let's wrap up and then link up again sometime next year for maybe a half-year review, and we follow up from there. So the floor is yours. Say goodbye to 2022 in your own words, and welcome for us the new year.
Yeah, so really in closing, let me record my appreciation and indeed that of the party to our members and our leaders who have been very, very committed to the ideals that we believe in. And also to our partners, the number of partners in democracy and governance that we have reached out to, and they've been able to help us. I also want to thank our volunteers. There are quite a number of volunteers in the secretariat, volunteers in the diaspora, coordination, mobilization, many, many, many people that keep propelling the ideals of the ALT. I believe that next year should be a year where we put in our very best towards raising resources and towards taking the party to the community, to the grassroots levels. I also believe that the outreach program should be intensified next year. I know the outreach team is very committed to this aspect, so that we reach out to corporates, we reach out to all manner of segments in the community, in the country, so that we begin to prepare ourselves for whether 2026 or whatever aspects of the transition that will come our way. I want to encourage all the party members to give in their best. But I also want to appeal to people who are standing on the fence. You will not change your country by being just an observer. There's always something you can do. If you cannot put yourself to active politics, please support those that dare to go into the field. If you cannot bring out money, pray for them. If you cannot pray for them, maybe advise them. If you cannot, just wish them well. We are happy to hear that you wish us well, you appreciate what we are doing. It energizes the teams. And then lastly, for those that are currently managing the country, just to remind them that this country, first of all, belongs to all of us, and we need to peacefully coexist in Uganda. We need to be tolerant, and we need to look into the future. What future do all of us, not just you, all of us, need for this country? And my prayer is that the good Lord will carry all of us across to 2023. I'd like to, on behalf of the Alliance for National Transformation, wish everybody a very fruitful, a very prosperous, a very blessed 2023. Nada, on a special note, to thank you for moderating this discussion and for being available to serve whenever you have been requested. We really appreciate you and previous moderators and the media team for facilitating these conversations. May the good Lord bless all of you and bless this nation, Uganda.
Amen. And that would be all from me, Nada Andersen, and Honorable Alice Alaso Asianut for today. Wishing everyone a very happy and prosperous New Year 2023, and see you on the other side of the New Year's Eve party. Yes. Thank you very much all. God bless, take care, and bye for now.
Thank you, bye.